So, on two topics, ESP and the ability of the future to affect the present. This is a long passage that is very intriguing from Arthur Koestler. And I just love his writing and style and how he talks about blind spots. And this entire book is the history of the blind spot of humans not realizing that the universe didn't revolve around us, and especially up until Kepler and his story of realizing finally that the sun was at the center of our solar system, and why we missed that for so long when the ancients could have figured that out, and it took until Kepler for that to happen. Why was there this blind spot? And so now he talks about other blind spots at the end of this incredibly fascinating, well-written book that came out in 1959. So Koestler was a young man when the quantum revolution burst upon the scientific scene. So he spent like his thinking life as a journalist and a science collector and science writer thinking about quantum. And so this is what he had to say in the Sleepwalkers. I shall quote two examples which seem to me to illustrate this blindness. The materialist philosophy in which the average modern scientist was reared has retained its dogmatic power over his mind, though matter itself has evaporated, and reacts to phenomena which do not fit into it in much the same manner as his scholastic forebears reacted to the suggestion that new stars might appear in the immutable eighth sphere. So in terms of this blind spot to the heliocentric universe, he starts with this. We are indeed a blind race, wrote a contemporary scientist, and the next generation, blind to its own blindness, will be amazed at ours. End quote. I shall quote two examples which seem to me to illustrate this blindness. The materialist philosophy in which the average modern scientist was reared has retained its dogmatic power over his mind, though matter itself has evaporated. And they react to phenomena which do not fit into it much in the same manner as their scholastic forebears reacted to the suggestion that new stars might appear in the immutable eighth sphere. Thus, for the last 30 years, an impressive body of evidence has been assembled under strict laboratory conditions which suggest that the mind might perceive stimuli emanating from persons or objects without the intermediary of the sensory organs, and that in controlled experiments, these phenomena occur with a statistical frequency which invites scientific investigation. Yet, academic science reacts to the phenomena of extrasensory perception much as the Pigeon League reacted to the Medicean stars, which he talks about in here, the first new star to appear during the modern age of science-taking that blew everybody away. And it seems to me for no better reason. If we have to accept that an electron can jump from one orbit into the other without traversing the space between them, why are we bound to reject out of hand the possibility that a signal of nature no more puzzling than Schrodinger's electron waves should be emitted and received without sensory intervention? If modern cosmology has a single comprehensive lesson, it is that the basic events in the physical world cannot be represented in three-dimensional space and time. Yet, the modern version of scholasticism denies additional dimensions to the mind or brain, which it readily accords to the particles of a piece of lead. I'm not playing on the word dimensions as a mechanical analogy, after the manner of the fourth dimension of occult quacks. I am merely saying that since the space-time framework, the concepts of matter and causality, as understood both by classical physics and by common sense experience, have been abandoned by modern physics, there seems to be no justification in refusing to investigate empirical phenomena because they do not fit into that already abandoned philosophy. A second example of the hubris of contemporary science is the rigorous banishment of the word purpose from its vocabulary. This is probably an aftermath of the reaction against the animism of Aristotelian physics, where stones accelerated their fall because of their impatience to get home, and against a teleological worldview in which the purpose of the stars was to serve as chronometers for humanity's profit. From Galileo onwards, final causes were relegated into the realm of superstition, and mechanical causality reigned supreme. In the mechanical universe of indivisible hard little atoms, causality worked by impact, as on a billiard table. Events were caused by the mechanical push of the past, not by any pull of the future. That is the reason why gravity and other forms of action at a distance did not fit into the picture and were regarded with suspicion. Why ethers and vortices had to be invented to replace the occult pull by a mechanical push. The mechanistic universe gradually disintegrated, but the mechanistic notion of causality survived until Heisenberg's indeterminacy principle proved its untenability. Today we know that on the subatomic level, the fate of an electron or a whole atom is not determined by its past. But this discovery has not led to any basically new departure in the philosophy of nature, only to a state of bewildered embarrassment, a further retreat of physics into a language of even more abstract symbolism. Yet if causality is broken down and events are not rigidly governed by the pushes and pressures of the past, may they not be influenced in some manner by the pull of the future, which is a manner of saying that purpose may be a concrete physical factor in the evolution of the universe, both on the organic and unorganic levels. In the relativistic cosmos, gravitation is a result of the curvatures and creases in space, which continually tend to straighten themselves out, which, as Whittaker remarked, is a statement so completely teleological that it would certainly have delighted the hearts of the school people. If time is treated in modern physics as a dimension almost on par with the dimensions of space, why should we exclude the possibility that we are pulled as well as pushed along its axis? The future has, after all, as much or as little reality as the past, and there is nothing logically inconceivable in introducing, as a working hypothesis, an element of finality, supplementary to the element of causality, into our equations. It betrays a great lack of imagination to believe that the concept of purpose must necessarily be associated with some anthropomorphic deity. These are matters of speculation and possibly quite beside the point. But we have learned from the past that impasses in evolution can only be overcome by some new departure in an unexpected direction. Whenever a branch of knowledge becomes isolated from the mainstream, its frozen surface has to crack up and thaw before it could be reunited with living reality.